Welcome back, happy Last of Us fans. We are at episode 6, titled Kin of The Last of Us. Boy, was this a great episode. Again, like the show is not missing at all. Um, so in this episode, we finally get to see Tommy. I might have to rewatch episode 1 because I feel like it feels like a different actor, but it could just be me. Um, because like I was like, maybe I haven't seen Tommy in so long that I'm like, what Tommy look like again? But in this episode, we start off pretty interesting. 3 months after the last from the last episode, so it's 3 months after we see Henry and Sam, the death of them, and so we start off with Sam and Joel. I mean, Sam and Joel. Ellie and Joel in the mountains, the snowy mountains. I think they just do that. I think to make it seem like it's winter because it's near Christmas time now. I guess that which we find out later to kind of make a more distinct time change. There's a time jump instead of just having the 3 months later on the bottom of the screen. So it's just to give a more visual feel. You know, they encounter this naked was what is basically Native American couple who has been living in that hill mountains for has to be over 20 years because they said they had moved up there to get away from people in general, even before the infection happened. So they've been up there for 20 plus years, at least 20 years, minimum. So they've been up there for a while. They've just been living off the land. The wife is like kind of funny. Is like, I didn't want to come up here and stuff. It's like, oh, you fed them? And they're like, yeah, I give them food. Whatever. And it was just kind of funny, like, in terms of the interaction. Um, and he's asking, of course Joel is there just to ask about, like, if they've seen Tommy, or a person that goes by the name of Tommy. The couple talks to them about, or tells them about, like, oh, there are bad people out there. There are there's these there are groups who will there's a group nearby who will kill people and just like leave their bodies hanging and stuff like that, like sound like makes them sound like really gruesome, inhumane type of group. Turns out it was this group was part of the community that Tommy is a part of. And yeah, there's this moment where Joel is like freaking out over the dog sniffing if like Ellie has an infection and all this stuff, right? Like it's just really tense. But then we do end up finding out that Tommy is still alive, but and then he's living and thriving in this community. This community which looks like it's kind of like a what you would imagine like a modern day like old town, like tourist trap would look like. Like, have you ever been to Old Town Sacramento, or like certain areas where certain like they used to have like these like like old western towns, like there's something you would see out of like the 1800s. They preserve that look, and then they had now it's like a tourist destination. It looks like that, like this town or this little settlement. But everyone's thriving. There's kids just running around. People are happy, and this town is supposed to symbolize like what a good town or what good settlement should be, right? There are other communities like where it's like full of raiders, there's cannibals, and other like bad people out there who just go around killing and raiding, killing and raiding. Whereas these people, they only kill in order to protect their own people. Yes, they have to do some evils to protect like the community, but overall they're very welcoming. They do screen, like pretty strict screening to make sure that they don't welcome in bad people or infected, but it's also that they can live relatively normal lives, at least to the best of their ability. They've done things to restore the dam so that they can have electricity. They have seemingly plumbing and all that stuff, so that they have movie nights, which is also kind of nice to have. So they're actually trying to build a community that's genuinely nice versus some of the things we've seen in like Walking Dead, where you have like Woodbury or like whatever the governor the community that the governor had, and then the communities that Negan had, where it's just like pure evil, right? On the surface it seems nice, but deep down they're actually bad. Whereas this community, all good, right? It's all good. And something that I also love about this episode is like, they have certain scenes that you can tell like it's kind of a, how should I say, like frozen in time, right? Like the bedroom that Ellie walks into midway through the episode, like you see an old Mac computer back from the early 2000s, because remember that this whole pandemic started in 2003, so therefore all the technology has like pretty much been like at best at 2003, right? So that was back when Steve Jobs had first come back to Apple, and he's like been pumping out like new products, and one of his biggest product launches were all the Macs that look like Judy Jetson, like the Jetsons type of technology, right? And like a lot of people had that. I remember, they donated to a ton of schools. So like I think my school and like all the surrounding schools got nothing but like those Macs to use. And I thought that was like just a fun callback to that bygone era. And Ellie is also reading the diary of the girl that used to live there. Don't know if that girl is still alive, but she's like, wow, this is what people actually you know worried about before the infection happened, was just boys and things like that, and their social lives instead of surviving, right? But this episode was so great in terms of just all the acting in general. Everything was so good. But before I get into that, a little bit more about the story. Other things we find out about Tommy, right? He was always the person who had to be the hero and like was like almost like looking for adventure in a way. But then he finally found Maria here, as pictured on my screen, and married her, and now they're about to have a kid together. So even more, so like Tommy is like kind of growing up, settling down. He's becoming something similar to what Joel was before the infection. And it's kind of nice to see that this new side of Tommy, so to say. I mean, though, but then again, we haven't had a whole lot of Tommy period, so it's the only side. It's like we've only seen like very little of two sides of him. But anyways, later in the episode, we see this great interaction between Joel and Tommy, where Pedro Pascal just delivers an incredible performance of when he just spilling his heart out to Tommy about like how he's getting old, how he's weaker, he can't hear as much anymore. He's not as fast as he used to be. He's describing that fight he had with those three raiders back in Kansas City, where it was seemingly a teenager almost killed him. And Ellie had to step in and and shoot the guy in order for him to survive, because he says like, if this is 5 years ago, I would destroy that kid and with no problem, but because I'm too slow and I can't, and I didn't hear him coming because I'm going deaf, like it's he doesn't know if he can finish out Tess's last dying wish safely. He thinks he's gonna get Ellie killed. And all of this stuff is lifted straight out of the video game too. So I thought that was just amazing. And I think, honestly, Pedro Pascal deserves like at least a nomination from the Emmys or the Golden Globes, probably both, for this performance, because he is doing a bang up job. I'm kind of surprised he doesn't even get one for The Mandalorian, which comes out in next week. So for the next season, which I'm so stoked about, because we get to see more of that going on. And he can't even do facial expressions in that one. He has a helmet on the entire freaking time. Anyways, so that's a great moment. And then we get another exchange between Ellie and Joel, who also, that scene also hits so hard because, again, lifted straight from the video game. So it's just great stuff. After they leave the settlement, Joel clearly has intentions to come back because he sees that, well, things are better here than the QZ, where I'm constantly living under like the oppression of the Fedra, and here like, at least people seem relatively equal, and granted, there is probably some restrictions, but it's like not oppression, right? And then we see these great scenes between Ellie and Joel, how Joel is teaching Ellie how to shoot, and we get kind of more daughter, like more father daughter type moments between them. Because let's face it, like Joel doesn't want to leave Ellie because he doesn't care about her. It's because he cares about her, wants her to survive. He doesn't want to fail her like he did Sarah. So we see this kind of this inner struggle that Joel has. And then at the end of the episode, so sorry, there's spoilers. Obviously, I'll throw it in the title. Joel gets stabbed, and I think we know that. I think on some level we know that they're not going to knock off Pedro Pascal 6 episodes in the first season. Like you know, so I think we'll be okay. I think what this episode sets up is going to be the next 1 or 2 episodes where, while Joel's being nursed back to health, Ellie will have to defend both Joel and herself, which is why we see her being taught how to shoot. So she's going to learn how to hunt and things like that. So and have to fight off like all these crazy people. I think we're going to maybe get some sequences, very similar to what we see in the game where the players have to kind of sneak around and then take out like people, unwanted like enemies that are kind of come searching for them, or just searching in general, right? They have to show her sneaking behind you know certain objects, and then to taking out people from behind, and then creating distractions. So I think maybe we're going to get something like that in the next episode or two, I'm guessing. I think it'll be a little fun, but we're seeing a better dynamic between these two, and I think this Ellie having to nurse Joel back to health is definitely going to build more of that relationship between them, because now Ellie has saved Joel's life once already. She's going to do it again. So this is really going to kind of hit home that relationship between them, where they're just going to build that bond. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of this season. It's going to be so awesome. It's going to be super sad when it's over and we're going to have to wait for season 2. But it's been a great episode so far. I'm digging this The Last of Us. Whoever is doing all the writing, this is the most faithful and best adaptation of a video game to the screen thus far. Like I can't think of any other video game to screen adaptation that's remotely near this. Like if this was the last, if this was the last thing that was adopted from video game to screen was this good, The Last of Us is like up here times like 100. So they set the bar real high. And it just goes to show that you don't have to change so much from the video game to the screen in order to have a great story. So many of these video games have great stories already. You just have to adapt it. You don't need to completely revamp it in order to fit the screen. And I feel like there just should be more TV shows instead of, say, like big time budget movies, because movies, you're limited to 2 or 3 hours at best, whereas TV shows, you can have a whole season to do it. So, and I'm sure even for these actors, they like a little more stability, I would guess. I mean, some actors just want to get the hell out of there after a project. But anyways, that's a whole other story. But I'm hoping that they do adapt more video games into TV shows instead of movies. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of episode 6, Kin. In the comments, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Hope you guys are having a great week, and I hope you guys and I hope to see you guys come back next week as we talk about episode 7. All right, take it easy, folks.